Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you. Well, at the end of the last episode, the Lone Cyberman got away. It's just a shame he did not run to a better story. Yep, folks, we are getting to the two-part finale of Series 12. So that doesn't mean we are getting very close to Timeless Children, but first, we need to talk about Ascension of the Cybermen. So why don't we start with my memory of this? My memory of this was that it was a decent setup. That wasn't a great story in and of itself, but it teed things up to possibly have a good finish, and then Timeless Children botched it. That's my memory. And it's not wholly inaccurate, but it's very incomplete. Pretty much everything that I remembered about this was all just setup stuff and a couple of random things like the flying Cyberman heads, and that the Master jumps out of the portal at the end. And then everything in the middle was just kind of bleh. Like, not that I didn't remember at all what happened. Well, I did in one instance, but I'll get back to that. It's just that it's just working along until we can get to the next step. So we have to reiterate Ashad. We have to sort of show the state of humanity at this particular point in time. And I don't remember now if the date actually gets set as to when this is supposed to take place. But it's supposedly the tail end of a massive cyber war that has wiped out almost all of humanity, as well as almost all the Cybermen. And like, that's fine as a premise. I did find myself wishing that somebody would say why the Cybermen are trying to destroy the humans instead of convert them. Because, like, that's their thing. And you'd think, especially if they are down to very few, that they would want to convert them. Yet they're trying to kill them. And that seems to be the goal. And, like, beyond that even, I can't remember if it happens in this episode, but at the very least in the next one, when they even get a hold and, like, capture them, they're still not planning to convert them. They're like maybe saying kill them away right away or using them as pawns for something. But like, why is conversion not any part of this plan? Like, I could get it if their main goal, we need to wipe out humanity because they're a threat to us. But I would think that if they captured somebody, if they got that opportunity, you convert them. You need the Anyway, I'm already getting stuck on something that is ultimately not that big a detail, but it kind of shows a thing of a lack of attention to detail. This thing has a decent energy and a pretty propellant pace. And that does a fair bit, I think, especially with the fog of time, to cover up the fact that there's a lot that, I'm not going to say doesn't make sense, but there's a lot of, hey, wait a minute, moments that aren't unanswerable. It's just the show never does a little wait a minute to touch on any of them. I've mentioned this in other reviews before where Moffat, when he did it, and he didn't always, but when he did it, he was actually quite good at this, was just throwing in a quick line of dialogue from somebody that just fills in a plot hole. Like, you're not sinking time into it, but it's just like one line that basically acknowledges, yes, we recognize this. And so this is us acknowledging that, like, we're not going to spend more time on that. And, like, that's important sometimes, if only so that as an audience, we know it's not a mistake. When you have lines like that to cover questions like, why aren't they bothering to convert anybody? That tells us that it's not a mistake. You didn't screw up. That's just not the story you're telling, because you're acknowledging, yes, we know that it could be this, but we're not doing that. We're doing this. And it just takes, like, little lines of dialogue. Somebody just had to say something like, all their conversion planets were destroyed, or, you know, something, you know, first thing destroyed was their conversion technology, whatever. It just takes one little line just to cover the base, and it's not done here, and that's the one I'm focusing on, but it shows up in a lot of things. But okay, so I mentioned that there was something that I had completely forgotten about, and it's weird because it covers a fair bit of this thing. That's Brendan from Ireland, the found child, becomes a guard and then dies. Doesn't actually regenerate, which feels like a cheat given what reveal we're building to with that. He ages and then he retires, but then his memory's wiped, and there is no context for this at all. None. And sometimes some shows, some movies, some storytellers can get away with integrating something where it's like, what does this have to do with anything? But some of the tricks that you can use to get away with that, none of them are employed here. So like, for example, if it is thematically consistent with what you're showing. So like, if you're doing these, scenes of war, of struggle, of running away, of survival, and you cut to someone who we don't know who they are or how they're connected or anything, but they are also facing a similar thing, while that still leaves questions of how does this connect, it at least maintains the flow and the feel and the tone of your main story. So that integrates a little better. Then there's just things like editing flow, like picking the points to transition where it makes sense to do so, as opposed to just randomly sticking it in between other scenes, which is what it really feels like here. It really feels like it was just the Brendan scenes were written and then divided up and like, okay, let's just slot these in where we can, with very little sense of flow to it. It just does this. And it just doesn't be, especially when you watched it the first time and you didn't know what the hell any of it meant, even knowing what it meant, it's still badly constructed and kind of meaningless. Like, I think it's very telling that there's this much of this stuff in here, but I'd completely forgotten. Because even this, like, what should have happened is there should have been a lingering question, and then when I got the answer, I would go, oh, but honestly, this barely properly connects to the answer we're going to eventually get. And I'm trying really hard not to go off on the Timeless Child already, because I've got to do a whole other episode on that. But like, just briefly, we have a throwaway line later that this is presented this way because the Time Lords tried to hide it within the Matrix so it wouldn't be noticeable. Why is it set in Ireland then? The Matrix is on Gallifrey. Wouldn't an entire section of information showing the life and times of some rando on a completely different freaking planet that theoretically has no direct connection to Gallifrey at all, wouldn't that stand out more? So like, even the supposed cover story for what this stuff is, that doesn't make any sense. Not for the internal logic. It makes sense in the trick the audience, basically present them something that's just lies. But even that, like, that's cheating. That's the laziest way to try and pull a twist or to try and pull the rug out. Oh, it's not what you thought. Yeah, because you didn't play fair. You presented something as if it was real and it was all a lie. Like, there are ways to make that work, largely having to do with characters turning out to be lying. But when the story is lying to the audience, then you're not playing fair. And it's not good. But again, like, these are things that in and of themselves in this episode are just kind of weird and not great, but they don't become problems until paired with the next episode. But there are some random little things that are actually kind of good and I kind of like. I like the super ominous voiceover from Ashad as part of the cold open.
But that which is dead can live again.
Of course, right after the credits, we then immediately cut to friggin' baby Brendan, and Ireland. So like whatever intrigue that build up is all shot immediately, but that just illustrates my point before about the flow of this thing. There's a moment I really like, especially in the wake of where I kind of lost my patience and lost a little bit talking about Haunting of Villa Diodati and some of my issues with that. I like that when the Doctor finds this little patch of surviving humanity and she gets actively annoyed with them that they don't know how to build things, repair things, or use weapons.
I've watched built a couple. Finish my story.
One of them just points out, we're just ordinary people.
We're not soldiers. I was a teacher. Revio was a nurse. We got a childminder, a driver, a builder.
And I like that somebody called her out on that. They're ordinary people. They can't do everything you would like them to do in the situation. They still matter. Don't treat them like garbage. You know, I say that as if the Doctor was openly cruel. She wasn't. She was pretty unfeeling. But again, it helps when the show calls her out on that. That having been said, the overall framing isn't particularly consistent on the deaths of these ordinary people because we have we have the flying cyberheads showing up, which I'm a little bit mixed on. It's a little bit of a goofy visual, but here's the thing. At the state that the Cybermen are in at this point, my head canon that would make me more accepting of this is with their more limited capabilities, with them having lost a whole bunch of resources, with them, you know, not in great shape after this war, this is the easy way to build drones, is to repurpose the heads of other Cybermen. But that in a more ideal situation where they have time and resources, that's not what they'd be sending out. They'd be putting together something more, unique to the task. But this is what they've got. That's what they're going to do. Of course, as I said, that is headcanon. There's nothing in the text that supports that. And on the other side of that, while I kind of use that to be a little bit okay with these things, I also would not have minded, a new visual something kind of tool for the Cybermen. I mean, we've got the Cybermats. We know they make stuff like that. Why not something new? We get some of the backstory on Ashad, specifically the fact that he volunteered for conversion and that with it's not being complete, he is deeply self-loathing. One of the other moments I really like is the Doctor confronting Ashad and, her pointing out that he has all this internal conflict, that he clearly hates all the human emotions that he very visibly has. And he just points out, yeah, you're right.
Now that's what I call an inner conflict.
You are correct.
Oh, am I? Didn't expect you to take it that well.
Now, he gives credit to that, to being able to work with that contradiction to the Cyberium. But regardless, I just love that. I just love the idea of a hero doing the, oh, you think you're this, well, really you're this. And like, it can be very cathartic when that's done to throw a villain off their game or cause a villain breakdown or just make them angry. And his response is just like, yeah, I know. And I was like, ooh, dang, okay. And like, again, Ashad's a really cool villain. He's going to be real wasted by in the next episode, but he's a real cool villain. That having been said, he brings up the idea that he is trying to accomplish the quote-unquote
The death of everything.
and the instant he said that, I cared less. Like, you already have this little grouping of Cybermen tracking down the last of humanity there's very little left. That's enough stakes. We don't need to inject freaking Davros reality bomb nonsense into this. And it doesn't really help that it doesn't track onto the Cybermen in general. Like, I will say as a general rule, threatening to destroy the entire universe is distancing, because I know you're not ever going to do that. Well, Flux maybe did. We'll get to that eventually when I get to that rewatch. But as a rule of thumb, like, the story's not going to do that. And so the stakes actually become way less the instant you introduce that idea. Now, you can still have universe-ending plots if it adds something to the villains or tells you something about those villains. And I would argue that with the case of someone like Davros, it does. So that's why I think it kind of worked back in Journey's End and The Stolen Earth. But here, they just it's like a needless, let's up the stakes. Okay, it didn't work. And a couple of other random bits. We've got the old guy, Kosharmas, who he's very much more of a plot device than a character. He exists to open the what they call the boundary, which is the portal to Gallifrey. But you know, he just kind of shows up out of nowhere with this whole thing, and like they try and play it as a twist. Oh, it's a person, it's not a place. I'm like, you didn't even get me invested in the idea of it being a place. So again, this is a twist that means nothing. This episode doesn't even really explain what the hell Ashad is doing to the Cybermen that is like making them scream, and they like make a big deal out of this moment. A Cyberman that makes other Cybermen scream, like, okay, what the hell was he doing? They kind of sort of explain what he might have been doing, but again, it's like, it's run past. It's a cool moment that in theory should pay off in some way, but it doesn't really. Not as an isolated moment of a cool thing, but it's just there now. I really did find myself wondering when the master jumped through the portal, because I was expecting him this time. I was like, has he just been waiting there for this to open? Has he just been stuck on Gallifrey and was taking the first opening that showed up? And lucky coincidence, because it sure seemed like he was expecting to see the Doctor. How? Like, thankfully they never say, I knew you were coming, Doctor, because like, no, there's no possible way. But even without doing that, the question is, how are you here? Like, I get why he's on Gallifrey, but like, how are you linking up with the Doctor right now? How do you know she's here? How did you know she would be here? How any of this? It's too convoluted. The one last thing I'll say in regards to the Brendan stuff is at the very end when it gets ominous, it's actually quite effective. It's quite sinister and unsettling in a way that made me wish the rest of it had been integrated so that the episode as a whole could build to that. Instead, it's just one more thing that happens that works as a kind of cool moment in and of itself, but, you know, put into context, adds nothing to it and might even be detrimental to it. Oh, I forgot to mention before when I was talking about the heads, they killed a couple of people, one of whom got like highlighted and a name and everything, and the other of whom didn't. And even when they both die, because they do both die, like somebody runs up to the one whose name we learned and literally nobody even looks at the other one. So again, we're having this issue with Chibnall's era of just a failure to acknowledge ordinary people, even after somebody kind of called out the Doctor for not being there for ordinary people. And then the episode just plows right on and does the same crap. So this is worse than my memory of it. I do think my memory of it was very much buoyed by the thought of, okay, well, this'll kind of live or die on where it's going. In and of itself, it is either going to be a setup for something great or it's going to be lesser when I watch it again because where it goes isn't that much, and it's that second one. But where it went is what we have to deal with next week. Oh, I've got so many notes on the Timeless Children. Anyways, Ascension of the Cybermen. Have you rewatched it lately? If you have, what'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills. Allows me to do this as my living. You get early access to videos amongst other perks, depending on what tier of support you do. But even if you can't do that, like, share, and subscribe. The YouTube things, you know what they are, and they help me out. But don't worry too much about it, because ultimately, what I want you to do is remember that you are beautiful. You are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. Well, it's Patreon supporter shout-out time, folks. So thank you to Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfulla, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Oliver B., Angus Bjarnason, Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Toy Lowly, Becky Spark, Fernabilax the Poodle, Zach, Tracy Scrabbit, General Contact Unit Problem Child, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Thanks so much for your help. You can get your name read out too. Check out the rewards in the Patreon. Is that what they should do? Should they check the Patreon?